Hey everybody, we are back for another Mirror Word chat. And this morning I am having a cup of coffee. Cheers, brother. We've got Jeremy Reece joining us from Fort Walton Beach, Florida. And I'm so happy to have him here. He's been hanging out at the Mirror online studies for just a fairly short while, but we had an opportunity of meeting back in Destin this past October for the Mirror Word Gathering. And I had a few minutes to chat with Jeremy and was in a breakout group with him one time. But keeps putting a lot on our page. People that are either part of the Mirror Word or are not part of the Wednesday night Mirror Word, you might be seeing posts from Jeremy. So I thought it'd be fun to grab him while he's not working as a massage therapist and put him on here. Say hey.
Well, hello. Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm really excited to chat with you today
Oh
and see
man,
where
we're
it
gonna.
takes us
What's that?
and see where it takes us.
Oh,
I'm looking
Texas. I
forward
thought
to
you
it.
said something about Texas. I'm like, yeah, Florida, Texas.
No.
We are. Yep. We both got our coffees this morning. It's early and we've got the work day ahead of us, but we're going to enjoy. You guys, Jeremy and I were chatting just before this for a minute about like the face-to-face time. Like one of my favorite things and why I like doing this is when someone says, "Hey, do you want to connect and meet for a cup of coffee?" I'm in. I'm like, "Where can we make time to just sit face to face?" And usually get in this gospel conversation kind of thing, but or at least real life conversation. And the online, we can think that that takes away, but what if we are limitless when it comes to being creative and connecting, and how in this mere face-to-face time we can meet face to face. Jeremy, like you're a deep soul already. I just know that about you. And that doesn't take a lot to figure out based on some of the things you speak in the group and the way you write. So what's kind of brought you to this, or has it always been that way for you?
Um, I have always been sort of a studier of human reactions ever since I can remember. It's super introspective. I feel like I remembered the first time I got angry as a child. The
Right.
first time I yelled at my sister, like weird things, like why would I remember that? I've always been so self-conscious, I think, growing up, just heavily self-conscious and constantly monitoring and watching people's reactions. I don't know why, but also very just vulnerable with
Mm,
people that I would just meet. And it's like, you know how this, and they're looking at me like, I can't believe you're sharing about yourself. And I'm thinking, this is normal. This is a human being. And I don't know why I've always been like that, but I've just kind of always been like that. And as far as like the writings go, it's the interactions have been wonderful. They've been so freeing because it's been a bunch of free people that have kind of brought me out of and are bringing me out of kind of a dark place that I've been circling for a while in and out, you know? And
okay.
so it's just freeing me up to be this person that I've been trying to be my whole life and haven't been able to get traction. Yeah.
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 You know what? I mean, right there, thank you for sharing that. Like that is um it's like that divine dance. And at the same time, there's this divine dance that's always been taking place since before the beginning of time. We've always been, but yet that process of self-discovery. I mean,
Yeah.
just hearing you say, I remember the first time I get angry, or this um, self-awareness,
Hmm.
introspection, self-awareness, self-conscious. I, I think of self-conscious as like two different definitions, right? Conscious
Sure.
awareness or self-conscious, like I'm self-conscious, I don't want like, but or self-aware, but I think self-conscious is truly what that word actually is.
Mm.
Um, we've just used it in a different way, kind of historically, and wondering the why behind that. And so you're in this like always like, who am I and how do I use that in a way that benefits, that builds me up and the people around me in the most life-giving way. And so I heard you say you've been kind of you didn't say kind of, you said coming out of this dark season. what if it is this like this waking up of like, this is what has always been, but when you see it in the light of truth,
Yeah.
held against the mirror of Christ, man, it's gonna be mind blowing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That is so incredible. So, you I know I don't know your mom. I know of your mom through online communities. Is that where you were first introduced to mirror, or how did that all kind of come about for you?
No, gosh, I think it was like maybe 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago when they were in Destin. And Patrick and I didn't know any of the people there. I didn't know. I just there was a get together in a church in Destin, and I didn't know this community of people were people that knew each other from an online community that were meeting. I just knew it was a bunch of people that were gonna, I don't know, talk about the. I didn't know even know what it was. Is this a church service? But my mom invited me because it was a gathering of people,
Okay.
and so I went, and I was in a particularly rough spot of in my life where I would go to these gatherings and see happy people and wondering why I wasn't happy. And I had been trying to sort of deconstruct supposedly for a couple of years at that point, and it wasn't really producing anything in me. I was feeling worse, if anything. And so I kind of left that gathering early, and then they met the next year. And I was still kind of maybe in the same place, maybe a little bit better. Yeah, I didn't yeah, it was just a random invitation to go to Destin and meet these people face to face is really what it was. But to get actually plugged in, that was very, very recent, you know. I felt desperate for community, and I just felt like I've got to get plugged in somewhere. I feel so isolated, and a lot of people have communicated that online. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you were invited to these gatherings that you
Yeah.
didn't know what they were, there was no explanation. You just got to observe and come to your own conclusion on.
Well, yeah, I just showed up and they were singing, and then they were, talking, and I would show up again and there was more singing, and yeah, it was just, yeah, I just showed up, and
Let,
I've always wanted to be around people, so
okay. I find that fascinating because it can be easy for us to over explain the gospel goodness and try to get people comfortable and what to expect. But
hmm
I'm hearing you just were brought in and then left to your own to decide what it was or what it wasn't for you in the midst of your own deconstruction that you said wasn't working for you.
right. It wasn't it was me searching for groups of people that were at least talking about God, because feeling like, all right, well, this is the great mystery that I'm trying to figure out, and I'm hearing assertion after assertion and fact after fact, and my life is not changing.
Yeah.
And I'm supposedly gaining understanding and able to articulate that understanding in a way, but it's not coming from inspiration. It's not coming from conviction. It's not part of my own testimony. So when I regurgitate it to somebody else, it's forced and robotic. And it's like, there's no fruit in my life of this. What's the deal? That's what I keep coming back to is awareness that nothing's really changing in me. So what am I missing? You know? And so it was just, here's another group, here's another opportunity. But I would almost go into it thinking, you're not going to get anything out of it. It's just going to be another attempt. You're searching and you're going to fall flat, and you're not going to get anything out of it. And I would just go in cynical to every group, every meeting, and even like the John Crowder convention coming in. It was just like a desperate hope that something's going to trip this time. It's going to unlock me.
Okay. So no, that's beautiful. I love it. I can connect with that. And
Yeah.
I bet that quite a few people can. We go into that striving place.
Yeah.
It's like, I see it, I want it. How do I get it? How do I get it?
Yeah.
What do I have to do to obtain that thing?
Mm.
And what do you think is shifting in you now? What do you think the difference is? Besides, I know you've said community, but what do you think
Right.
inside of you is shifting? If you could find it, and maybe you don't know the answer to that, and that's fine too. I mean, this is like not an interrogation.
Right. What is shifting? I think I don't know what it is because I've been around other groups of people before. I've been to Bible studies in the past, and I was always excited to go the first time until you go and it there's no life there. And in traditional churches growing up, these Bible studies ended up being AA meetings that were just like, oh, let's get around and talk about how we all suck at this, and then that's the extent of your conversation, and nobody really has answers. But this, for whatever reason, it's obviously a group of people who are actually being touched by something that is setting them free, and their freedom is becoming contagious to me. I, I have a hard time. I've had a hard time since age 17 actually reading comprehension and listening. Um,
Bingo, me too.
and so I'm like, man, God, if you want me to read my Bible, I'm trying, but I'm not getting anything from it. But it's wonderful because I think with the mirror, you're seeing people who are actually touched by some truth. And I'm able to, like, by osmosis, be around the people who are understanding this. And I'm hearing that same message. It's just delivered in a different vehicle to me. It's delivered through emotion. It's delivered through smiling faces, through their testimony. I'm hearing that same word, but it's filtered even further, another step through these people because I needed it filtered another step further because I'm not a scholar, right? And I think that's what's going on is I finally found a group of people who are actually being touched by truth,
Yeah.
and I'm getting to reap the rewards of it by being in proximity. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Which is, you can call that quantum physics and energetic frequency
yeah,
to a varying degree, but who's the creator of all energy? Who is our power source, right? It's a source of power. And so we operate either very low in a low functioning, shame-based, fear, uncertainty, low vibration energy to raising that up of we want to get to love. We want to get to that place of joy,
yeah,
of peace. And that just keeps coming higher and higher.
yeah,
And how it can even shift online because we
yeah,
don't necessarily get to be the face to face. If you and I were sitting at a coffee shop and I could feel that and I could see it and I could feel it in a hug of greeting and those things,
mm-hmm,
but he's showing us that this surpasses all of that, that it's transmuted like through prayer. It's the same kind of thing. Like, it's like I can think, oh my gosh, I have, as I was going about my morning, I'm thinking about Jeremy. I'm knowing, what are we going to chat about? What's your heart for him? And there is that, and that starts to even raise it because of connection and community in a different way. Some
right,
people may think that's woo woo. I want to propose that he's showing us what's always been. We're just, the veil is being removed more. The layers come down to show the interconnectedness of all of these beautiful things.
sure,
And so what you were just saying, Jeremy, I can connect with that so much, and I know a lot of people will, because we all learn in different ways, and we we view things through the lens of our own experiences
yeah,
and the uniqueness of the way we're created, um, rather than thinking that what's wrong with me
mm-hmm,
versus this discovery that he's showing you, Jeremy, let me show you all the incredible facets of you that are actually facets of me. They're me. And you carry that in such a beautiful way. So like my background of my computer, I can't show it. I could, I guess, if I did a screen share, but it's this electrifying lights. Like, it's the most beautiful color scheme. And that's just what I'm thinking of, like that. Like, let me show you your real colors, your true colors. Is that Cyndi Lauper?
that's a great song. Yeah,
I know, right? But
yeah,
yeah, especially when you hear it in the right way,
right,
right? We tune our heart to it. And you said something that actually, first time I did a John Crowder meeting, and I met somebody who's actually part of your Fort Walton Beach community. I think they hadn't moved there yet. And he and I connected just because he was so welcoming. And I went by myself in Memphis. And I think, he went with somebody else. But anyway, we connected on a Zoom call after that because I was kind of in that place of like, I'm just trying to find this. This was very new to me, all of this finished work. And I was efforting and efforting. on what I needed to do to understand or make, yeah, I was starting to get head knowledge, but I knew I couldn't share it with anybody because it wasn't even making sense in my mind.
Yeah.
And that bothered me because I'd been in ministry before, so I'm used to blah, 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 blah. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't even speak to people. And I was trying to fix circumstances. I was focused on the problem, which to me is what I was doing more when I was deconstructing. I was
Yeah.
focused on the
Yep.
problem. And he said the most profound thing to me in the fewest words when I asked him, like, how? And he's like, well, you know what? I guess I just don't think about the thing. I just gaze into Jesus' eyes.
Mm.
And I sat there because that's all he said. And he was quiet after that. I just find myself gazing in his eyes. And I'm thinking, I can't even see his eyes, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And then I want to effort to see his eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that began a shift for me, Jeremy, that was like, get the focus off the problem and on the solution and let that love just wash over me. And I couldn't explain it, but I would see it in written text in the mirror more than I could comprehend in other translations. I still love many translations and I need the balance of those things. But then for me, there's this undertone with the mirror that brings that love back, that love that says, you're perfect as you are because you're in me. And I did all of this stuff. And I was just like, the language with it melted everything. The tears would
Yeah.
flow. The connection has come. And then in that love is where everything starts to just be okay. And I can let the circumstance, the past, the previous understandings, being enough, not being enough, all my screw ups, or all the things that I felt like were misfortunes towards me, whatever you want to call life on life's terms, came into his eyes. And it's still just unfolding. And I know it's going to for a lifetime. And that's where the shift comes. That's where the willingness to walk into community and let that just permeate my heart. And when there's days I don't feel it, I can just receive it, like you're saying.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like I've really come to realize I had somebody prophesy something over me a couple years ago. She was basically, I kept showing up to this church during the deconstruction period because I was calling around I was talking to pastors. I was like, what do you believe? Because I cannot go back to what I said. I was talking to pastors. And I was like, I need to find a church. Anyway, I would go to this one church periodically, and this woman would prophesy every time she saw me. She's like, God has a word for you. God has a word for you. And she told me, she said, God says, you know, you need to find a body, you need to find some community. He's not going to be able to do in your life what he wants to do without the Aarons and hers in your life. And I have noticed especially now, I don't know why. I mean, I knew I needed to be around people, but I guess what it was being around people who were in the truth. Like, I've been around people, but I wasn't community enough. What wasn't enough? It was community in the right context, community pointing to identity. That's the missing ingredient. This is the community, and it's a community of people being touched by identity, and it is just bringing me to life to where it's like, now this is my life. You know, this I wrote something about being a patchwork. Like, I feel like I just had this image of all of these interactions and watching all these people and their testimonies. Like, each testimony is like this little piece that was like stuck here and like stitched together, and everybody, and I'm right now, all the energy that I'm feeling and the love that I'm feeling really is them. It's them. It's the energy that they gave to me. So when you're looking at me, you're looking at the love that you see in my heart. You're looking at your love that you gave to me previously, really, you know? And I'm just watching it all take place, and it's just so beautiful. And then watching everybody share, and the emotion rises, and and the light just starts bouncing back and forth, and the energy just builds in a room. And I'm like, I finally feel like I know what home can feel like. I told my buddy a couple years ago, if I could summarize everything that I'm feeling that's so horrible in my life, is I feel homesick. for a home that I've never known, but I know is there, you know, and I'm feeling that at home now. So,
That is so beautiful. That is priceless. Priceless.
yeah.
And you stepped in, like you were willing to do it.
Yeah.
And you stepped in and um I'm thinking about, I don't know if it's like Romancing the Stone or it was one of those old movies where, well, and you could say the same about I don't know if it's Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter scene, but I'm seeing, like when you're in there's this giant cavern. Okay. And so you take a couple of those kind of movies. I can even think of a Winnie the Pooh has the same scene. It's the same kind of a thing where you're running from something. And then there's this vast, like you come to the edge and there's this vast chasm that needs to be crossed. And you need to get to the other side, but the only way is by taking that step that you need to take in faith,
Mm-hmm.
his faith, and then the next step appears. So it's like a bridge starts to appear as we step. Does that
Mm.
make sense?
Yes. Yeah, 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 yeah.
And so it's like you don't know. I'm hearing like you're like, I don't know what community is like. I don't know what I need, but you're willing to take that step. You take that step, and then the next thing appears, the next healing, the next patch. All of these things start to come as we step out, and he's like, just go with me. So it's co-creating, we're co-creators with the creator, and he's
Yeah.
like, I can do it. We sit there, remember how we used to pray, oh God, please do this, do this, do this, and we're doing nothing.
Right.
Work, co-create with me. Let's create that
Yeah.
community. Let's create that life. But I need you to work with me. Where's your willingness to step? And then
Sure.
I'll make it magical, beautiful, incredible.
Yeah.
Oh
Feel
no.
like just what you were just talking about, stepping out when we don't see. I mean, that's that faith. It does require faith, but it's funny because I took that step with cynicism, vague notion of where it was going, and I just feel like it's Jesus taking that step for me. It's his faith in there because
Yes.
I don't know I was taking it, not really sure what I believe. It's just like a hint that I need to go in that. So ultimately, it's just like him supplying that, him walking that faith path for me,
Yeah.
and bringing me into it. But we're taking it. It's a mystery.
But it's an entwinement,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because even in the doubt, like I think what you just said is super powerful about even in cynicism, but I still took it.
yeah. It's Jesus. Yeah,
And it's like I don't, why fake the
mm,
attitude like, okay, this is gonna be great. Like you're like, no, this is how my flesh feels.
yeah.
And there's so much of that. Wow, that's beautiful. Well, so I mean, since you said you like talk about anything, do you want to how are you feeling in that dark season right now? You talked about dark season. I mean, that's wide open if you like to talk about that or what that meant for you and where it's taking you now.
Well, I mean, all of life has felt like a dark season, but especially COVID, when COVID first happened. I don't know about you, but I was like, wow, major world event. Is this the end of the world? I still believed in traditional Armageddon and all that stuff. And what was on my mind wasn't like, oh, where's Russia? Where's the war? Where's the battle going to happen? Well, I was worried about. I was like, I don't actually authentically love my wife, and the world's about to end. So I have missed the entirety point of why I'm here.
Oh,
And that it just ate at me and ate at me and ate at me. And I would scream and cry and cuss out God for 3, 4 hours a night for probably 6 straight months. Where are you?
mm,
Where are you? All I want to do is love. I have no other desire in my life but to love. And I can't even do that. And I've studied and I've supposedly asked Jesus into my heart since I was 6 years old. And I was probably, what was it? I'm 41 now, like 36 at the time, something like that. Why can't I love? I've literally spent my whole life searching for you, right? And I heard a message about Dan Moeller, and it was talking about how the whole point of the cross was to remove sin consciousness. The blood of bulls and goats was insufficient because there was reminder of sin. So it's like, wait a minute. that's like the foundation of everything I believe and heard in church. And that got called into question. So I'm like, and at the time, my mom had been listening to John Crowder and different grace preachers who were just talking about identity and they weren't talking about hell. And I'm like, I'm angry at her. I'm like, you're sending people to hell. Well, I finally started opening my ear to the people that she was been listening to for years that had changed her life. And I started reading these books and I started reading John Crowder books. And for some reason, at some point, a few months into the journey, 6 months into the journey, I started to have this growing sense of foreboding and dread where I wasn't feeling good anymore. I was feeling completely, little by little, I was lost. I think I was deconstructing supposedly so rapidly without anything to put underneath it that I just felt like I was free. I mean, I was systematically removing the identity I had built for myself with not
Mm.
really, not because it had been replaced, but it was what you were talking about. We're focusing on the problem, what's not true, what's not true, what's not true. I'm like, yank that out, yank that out. I got nothing left now.
You're free falling now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I built my house on sand. It's like, how can I have the sand back? Because I've got nothing underneath it right now, and it's, it sent me on this quest to figure out, but it's always been about like, where's where's the inspiration? It's always up here. It's always concept. Where's the inspiration? Searching for that inspiration, searching for that moment where it changes not just what I talk about in a group, but like it changes my knee-jerk reactions, the habits that I've had for 30 years. That's to me going to be the evidence. So I kept getting on and off Facebook because I would say things that I believed. I would supposedly deconstruct and say, well, this is wrong. This is how the church is wrong. And I would just regurgitate that stuff. And I didn't really feel particularly good doing that. And I would get off Facebook. I would look and be like, you're lacking love in your life. Why do you want to communicate what you believe to somebody else? Do you want them to be like you? You kind of you don't feel too good about yourself. And that would convict me and I would get off. And
Okay.
most notably, this last October, I had been off Facebook for 14 months because I had just like, I've got nothing good to share. Look at what I'm dealing with in my own mind, in my own heart, I've got nothing to give. This past October, I came back and I wrote a poem. I was out with my family. I wrote a poem and it was off to the races. I felt like I was able to express myself in a way that felt more natural than just regurgitating facts about the Bible. I'm just not very good at that. It doesn't feel natural. And then I just started documenting all of my emotions. I would just write whatever I was feeling in the moment. A lot of times I was drinking when I was writing it, searching, and because of the attention span stuff and the memory stuff that I've had, I'm forgetting phases of my life previously. I felt like there was almost like something in me that's saying you're going to want to document this so that you can remember your own testimony. You're going to
Mhm.
want to document these ups and downs because I knew that stuff just disappears out of my head, even in recent memory. And it just became and almost this heart cry for people. I felt like people were feeling guilty around other people who were happy and they didn't want to share their testimony. They didn't want to say, I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with that. And they're trying to emulate somebody else, but they're not really feeling it from conviction. And so they just keep it bottled up like around other people who are having ecstatic experiences. And I just felt like something deep in me wanted them to know that like you're understood. It's
Mhm.
okay that you don't have it all figured out right there. I was like giving people the courage to voice these things. Say, bring it up to your brothers and sisters. Let's hash it out. I think there's an element of that going on. Just wanted me to be as real can be, even if it was messy. I don't know.
Wow. That's beautiful. You have had some very powerful statements out there, like words that you have written and shared, and that
Uh-huh.
I assume have come from that time. And I think they're very important. I think there are definitely. You speak to a, a people group, right? I believe we get to a certain point where he says, say, take your experiences, take the way you've been beautifully made, the facets of me that you possess, and allow people to see that as you come to that place of knowing that foundation is being rebuilt, right? Like you
Hmm.
talked about identity, that core, like that's knowing who we are first. So then when we are experiencing deconstruction or growth, all of the things are stemming on knowing who we are in Him, not based on all those experiences. But yet, tell me what you feel, how you feel about sharing those things that you've documented, but then sharing them in the light of beginning to really see who you are in Him and the difference. Because, does that make sense?
Right. So it's the difference I feel between sharing those things and sharing,
Like, so sharing them when we don't know who we are
right.
versus beginning to share them in the light of truth.
Yeah, I think sharing there was like this undertone of, even though I knew I was sharing kind of my confusion, but there was almost like this presence there. It wasn't, it had an objective to it. It wasn't just to be like, just to say, hey, I like to write like this. It was almost like I was trying to find the light in the dark. If
Yes.
Jesus really is, I took this from my buddy, um, Jesus really is the deepest truth of every man. If he is the deepest truth, and if he is the light in the dark, and if he has made his bed in my own personal hell, then I'm going to go through hell to find him, because I
Mhm.
it's because I believe there was light down in there in that dark. That's
Yeah.
why I was saying the dark, is I'm like going into the dark, like for a purpose, because the deepest part of me says there's light down there. There's light down there. So this isn't a scary dark. This is you know, this is almost kind of a
Yeah.
playful dark, I think, you know.
Well, he entered the deepest depths of hell, right?
Yeah.
He entered our hell to assume our hell, became it, took it
Yeah.
on for our freedom.
Yeah.
And so it's like meeting him where we never thought he was before.
Hmm.
Does that
Yeah,
connect?
absolutely. And then turning it, coming, it's like watching myself being pulled through all of these stages, and then coming out on the other side and giving it context to that. I feel like that's exactly why I wrote those things, so I can go back and remember, oh wow, I remember what that was like. So I have a story to tell, a long story to tell. I feel like that was part of all of this was happening. It was also giving me an outlet, somewhere to flow. I think I've been so desperate, and that's why the community, that's why the face-to-face groups is so important. We need to flow, we need to give, we need to take. And that writing was giving me a way to utter things that I couldn't do through Bible verses alone, through assertions and facts.
Mm-hmm.
Is allowing these festering emotions to have a voice, for somebody to critique, for somebody to give me advice. It was a heart cry, it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
search for connection. So
Well, and what if even some of the most powerful shifts happen in community when nobody gives any advice or correction or anything? They just say, I hear you, brother.
yeah, sure.
Right. Because I don't know, like there's something powerful in just speaking something out. And then I say, I hear it. And then I go, did I just say that? Is that what I think?
Yeah.
Like, that sounds a little messed up or whatever,
Yeah.
you know? Isn't it Einstein that says something along the lines, I'll butcher the quote, but we can't solve insanity with the mind that created it.
Right. Yeah.
And so we do that because we naturally at the powers, principalities, things that come in that speak through here, right? Versus forgetting that we have the mind of Christ and saying, telling us things that aren't truth. And then we attach an emotion to it and go, well, it feels like it's truth. And then my mind remembers. And then we create this pattern and this cycle and those neural pathways that we just stay on this loop. And it's very hard to hop off of that path without somebody's hand going, take mine. Let's go over here.
It's impossible. It's when we're trying to articulate, we cannot really fully articulate where we are lacking in our understanding. It would be like you being able to see which part of the puzzle, the exact dimensions of the shape of that piece. And if you could fully articulate where you were wrong, you would also be able to fully articulate what was right. You wouldn't be in that state. So not only do we not have the answer, we don't have the answer of the larger context wherein that answer is held. Like we're just so lost in our own lack of understanding that it's you cannot pull yourself out of your own lack of understanding. Like I'm starting to see that wow, this is all, and then what's been impressed upon me more recently, probably my time in the mirror has helped, and other things that I've read is just like this all works because we are woven into the faithful one. We are woven into the one who believes the Father and never stops believing. He's the one that endures. It's his faith. It's ultimately him. I'm participating in his relationship. And I'm for the first time, I'm actually starting to believe that. I heard it for a few years, but I'm starting to see, man, this everything that Jesus or the Father commanded me to do, he was going to end up fulfilling in Jesus.
Yes.
Any little command, it wasn't just, hey, I'm demanding this of you. It's like, this is this actually a, he's actually prophesying. He commands me to do something. He's like, you're going to do that in Jesus. One day you will see that you will do that, or it's already, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what
Yes.
I feel like when I hear a command. It's like, this is a prophecy for like, this is done and Jesus is going to do it and you're going to enjoy it. So,
Yes. It's yours. So
yeah,
experientially, we
yeah,
need the experiential
yeah,
part components. We have the intellectual, and then I don't know, like I need the experiential. I need it in community. I need it uh whether it's on the online group,
yeah.
meeting with people face to face, hopping on calls with people, when Pat and Pam, they'll travel around, and they have done a lot of travel, they'll go visit people. It's like it's solidifying these things. So then, I don't know, like me, the more I experience it there, I can live it here in the suburbs of Houston to people that I know, right?
Yes.
And it becomes the living word. I
Yeah.
am the living word. You're the living word. And it gets to be expressed that way.
Amen.
It starts to move out of that intellectual knowledge to the realization. And I don't want to like do the whole, oh, drop 12 inches to the heart. It's this, his life just becomes our life more and more and more.
Sure.
And it
Yeah.
just is. And I love it. I can see it in your eyes. It's so, so beautiful. Wow. And so, okay, so back to the writings. Maybe they're first written out of the struggle, the pain, the drinking, the things. Then we start to move into this interconnectedness and seeing that. And like you said, you're tracking your journey, entering
Hmm.
that darkness. Um, so connecting that to many years, struggled with mental health, depression, anxiety, different things, a lot of different circumstantial things that changed life. And I used to, several years ago, use elements of that. I would focus on that to connect with people to varying degrees. Now in this journey, there's been a lot of shift where, as I mentioned earlier about that conversation, like I don't focus on the circumstance, because what I focus on, I empower. Graham Cook, I remember, used to say that all the time, and I latched onto that because where my thoughts go, energy flows. You can put all of those different kind of phases. If I focus on the problem gets bigger.
Sure.
When I focus on my solution, Christ in me, the hope of glory. And he's like, it's not a problem to me, Amy. Your past isn't a problem. Yet, like we said, it's helpful to let people come along that journey and go, but I don't understand the ecstasy. I don't understand the joy. It frankly makes me uncomfortable. That's not how I see myself. Where we can, for me, using the past, yet the shift is now like, I just go here.
Yeah.
Uh, kind of tell me about that transition, or how you see that, where you're like, there's the past, and it's not that far behind me, maybe in some elements, but experiencing more and more life in the mirror reflection. And how do you see those two working together?
So as far as being able to transition to where we're kind of talking about these dark moments, but we're not making them the point. Is that basically what you're saying? Yeah, because it's not the point. It's just to yeah. Um, I think being able to do that, well, it's love, right? Like, have you ever heard the expression, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care?
For
And I
sure.
think when people feel heard and seen and like, hey, you're accepted right now, even in your unbelief, then that is the vehicle that opens those receptors to hear your gospel message to them.
Hmm.
And I think that's we have to realize when we're in a group of people, not everybody's in the same place in their understanding. um, and being able to not really identify with that sparks, but say, I understand you in that moment where people feel safe, like they want to be heard, especially people who've been through some great trauma. A lot of times you feel like, who hasn't been, but a lot of times you feel like I'm especially twisted, I'm especially messed up, nobody understands me. And you're in a group of people and you just kind of cocoon and they're talking about all these grand, wonderful ideas and notions. And it almost isolates you from being able to hear what they're saying. You feel like they're superhuman or something like that. I don't know. That's the way I've felt before it. I just feel like it's great to have a wide, that's why community is so great. I mean, it's a stair step. You have so many people in different stages and you input so much from these different stair steps. You find somebody in that group that can love you and understand you, and that person might be able to deliver the message better than another person can. And that's what I've noticed in these small groups and in this last group that met recently locally is somebody had the perfect testimony to share with this younger person about the very same, they had gone through a very similar situation. And it just opens the ears to know what even, the more advanced person has to say later. They have to, I don't know if I'm explaining myself right.
Yeah, you are.
It's just, it was such a wide range of people in this last group that met in Fort Walton Beach. Rachel Cannon was there. She hadn't been there since we started transitioning away from speaking messages or from watching videos, but it was just really beautiful to see how we would talk about how we understood those dark thoughts, but then somebody else who wasn't part of the conversation would have the answer to it. You know, I don't know.
No, it's, what I'm hearing you say, Jeremy, which
Yeah,
is vital, is like we don't have to fit a cookie cutter as the body. We are
yeah,
unique parts. And I I think there can be a tendency to, probably even as we step further into the finished work and what that looks like living life. I don't like to call them streams. I don't think streams, because streams is such a term that goes with a lot of old lingo. I don't, because people will say a stream and then there's a new stream and then there's a new stream. I think we're stepping deeper in the reality of Christ, the revelation of who he is. And that means we don't need to fit this cookie cutter. And so, when you belong to a big mega church or a regular church or whatever it was, kind of feel like subconsciously, what does my life need to look like to fit the mold? And then we become that to be accepted and to fit man's
yeah,
expectation, versus you bring a unique element of your life and his life into whatever community you're going to be a part of, whether that's in Fort Walton Beach or it's online or it's at your job, whatever. And you do that in his love, knowing who you are identity foundationally. And that's going to meet the need of certain people when they walk into a room. And someone who's never, ever experienced hardship the way you have, or trauma or whatever, is going to meet a need and radiate that uniquely their way. But it's like when we don't put an expectation, but can honor one another as the part
Yeah.
of the body that we
Yeah.
are,
Yeah.
then it's going to be just what it's supposed to be. Honoring him and loving him and being loved by him naturally makes the community work the way
It
it's
does.
in
Yeah.
oneness, in completion as the whole body. And the more I know for me, the more confident I am as I am and becoming the woman I was created to be, I can show up and I don't have an expectation of anybody else. I just get to be. And you get to be, you know, I don't know. That's just coming to my mind. And I love seeing it just transform and grow.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's really good.
I'm walking, stepping into what I've never really felt like I've been able to step into my entire life, for the first time, seeing that, this is living. I think I can see what living feels like. And the thing about it is, it's like, always knew that that's what living was. Something deep part of me, that's what the resonance is. It's like we finally arrive at something. The whole reason we resonate and know that's what it is because it was always in us to begin with. It's that part of us that we're finally seeing our real self coming to light. Like, wait a minute, I've always been this person deep down. I'm starting to be uncovered. I'm starting to be unveiled, and I don't have to worry about. I used to obsess about, man, I'm reading my Bible. I don't understand. I can't pull things out of passages like these people. Something's wrong with me. And then I'm like, and this past week, it hit me in group. It's not, maybe it's not your gift. Maybe you need somebody to chew that for you like a baby bird and spit it into your mouth. And that's okay. Maybe you need another layer of filtration more than that person did. Who cares?
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
So just take advantage of the one who's able to sit there for hours and hours and hours and parse through things and pull things out and just enjoy it and be grateful for it and don't take it personally that you weren't able to get there on your own. And then it goes for other gifts and things like that. Yeah, we just get to be whatever we are. And I feel like the community and just being able to feel wherever we are, we will just naturally fall into what our gifts are. We will just find ourselves that way.
Yes.
So,
I fully agree. And what if everything is just like in your life right now, you're exactly where you're supposed to be? There's freedom in that.
yeah.
Yeah. So good. Jeremy, I could chat with you all day, but I think people are going to be like, that's long enough for
Sure.
now. You
No
guys,
problem.
this is such an honor to be able to just be on here. And I know that some of the things that you said for sure will resonate with people. Your writings are powerful and beautiful. Like I'm just floored every time I read them. And the way that you are gifted to express with words what many people put a box lid on and go, we're not going there, which causes dis-ease in the body and the mind and the spirit.
Oh, yeah.
And you give that permission. God will bring it to them when it's their right time. Because, we can't force that. But it I feel like a lot of your words um, will maybe gently initiate some of their own healing in the people that choose to read it. So thank you.
Well, gosh, that would be awesome. Yeah, if it produces that in somebody else, that's so wonderful. I'm been so grateful for you to have me on here and talk with me today. It's been wonderful.
Oh, I'm so glad. It's just that I don't know, like we've talked about resonance. There's just that connection that he is always awakening in us in another
Yeah,
through through the eyes, through the words, through the confirmations of another. Just help bring his reality further into our day, into our lives. So, y'all,
absolutely.
thanks for tuning in today and keep watching these, share them with friends. And you can find them just on the YouTube channel at Amy K. Hauser or on Facebook and Instagram too. Thanks for tuning in today, y'all.